At Focus At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
And I am Ansony, Sieh, and this is yet another edition of our program here at Focus on Liberia. Of course, this is the hour of politics. If you are just joining us, a pleasant welcome to this edition of our program. In this edition of the hour of politics, we are having an exclusive with some members of the board of ULAA. Recently, there was an electoral convention that ended in chaos. Elections got canceled. The board has assumed the executive leadership of the union, and the then elected president Joshua Kamara and his team are accusing them of interrupting the convention and giving themselves powers that they should not be occupying at this time. Seated and ready for the conversation is the chairman of the board, Mr. Alfred Sieh. Mr. Sieh, it's good to have you. How you doing, sir?
I'm fine, and thank you, Mr. Ansony Sieh, for the invitation to me and my board members to be here. I want to tell you we don't take this invitation lightly. We have not been speaking a lot since the incident on the 16th of September. Because we want to make sure we create an atmosphere where we can have a soft and safe landing for the Union of Liberia Associations in the Americas. So thank you for inviting me. And I also want to take this time to introduce my fellow board members who are on the show here with me. My first vice chairman of the board of directors, Honorable Kamara, and my able and energetic secretary of the board of directors, Honorable James Barclay. So thank you for welcoming us on this platform.
Mr. Sieh, it's an honor. And for those watching, we share the same name, but we're not family. So I'm not going to take side here. My job is to ask the questions. We want to welcome Reverend James D. Barclay, Secretary General for the Union's board. It's good to have you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sieh. I'm very pleased to appear here with you today. I take this voluntary service as an opportunity to share with Liberian people what leadership is like. I serve as the council member in the city of Pleasantville in New Jersey. So I find a great joy to serve my people at this level. Thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you. And Mr. Kamara, you are the first vice chairman on the board. It's good to have you. How you doing, sir?
I'm all right. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. As the chairman said, we have been silent, working behind the scene, making sure that the union is intact. All we have here right now is the union. There's nothing we can do to undermine the progress of this union. So our being with you here tonight, we don't take it lightly. It's an opportunity so we can be able to speak to our Liberian people. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, I want you to do this for our listening audience. You are leaders in the community, especially at the level of ULAA. Let me start with you, Reverend Barclay. What has been your involvement with ULAA so far that you want Liberians to know about?
Well, initially, I resided in Atlantic City, New Jersey. We were a non-member chapter of the union. We were not a member. But when the union was engulfed in conflict, my community and I hosted a peace mission here that brought together past and current leaders at the time, Anthony Kessley, Mariah Seaton, Bai Bala, Thomas Womoyu. We hosted them in Atlantic City, and we tried to dwell in the peace process. At the conclusion of the process, since we were not a chapter, the founder stage was taken to Maryland. From that moment, we saw that there was a need for our involvement in the union. I believe that what we do in America can have a ripple effect on what happens in Liberia. This is why, as a sitting city council member, for which I have pay, I have come to volunteer my service to my people to serve on the union.
Thank you. Mr. Kamara, what is your motivation for the leadership role at the level of ULAA that you are playing?
Thank you so much, Mr. Sieh. And it is a very great question. A lot of people around don't really know what ULAA is for and what ULAA stands for. And my being with the union on the board of directors, we work very hard to advocate for our people, make sure that we have good governance, we hold our government accountable to address the needs of our people. And being on the board, we work hard for dual citizenship. We make sure that there's relief that go out to our people during the time of COVID. Our chairman was able to fly to Liberia to make sure that he advocates on dual citizenship. And these are things that we do behind the scene that people actually don't know what a union is for. Without the union, there going to be no multi-political system today in Liberia. It is because of the union all those systems are taking place. So it is my pleasure, and it is what motivated me to actually be on the ULAA board of directors.
And Mr. Sieh, how far have you come with ULAA? Time have changed now, Mr. Sieh. So my second question is, what is ULAA focus at this time?
Thank you. That's a great question. And this is what motivated me to come to ULAA. If you look at ULAA, most of our activities have been on just advocacy for freedom of speech, or multi-party system, and the right to exercise our franchise as Liberians. When I came on board, I came with not just the advocacy, but to look at other areas that ULAA can be impactful to our Liberian people. One of the things we did during the COVID, like my first vice chairman said, was that the first time in the history of ULAA, we're able to provide food to the 5 most hit counties in Liberia. Talking about Nimba County, Monserrado, Bon County, Margibi, Grand Baza, and we were able to make sure that those needed areas had food while there was a lockdown. In fact,
how much food did you provide at the time, Mr. Sieh, if you don't mind?
I would not tell you a quantity at this time because we provided over $20,000 worth of food. I can tell you that. In fact, we kept Phoebe Hospital open. Phoebe was at the point of shutting down because there was no food to feed the patients, and the staff were able to provide food until the UN could step in. So those are some of the things that we did. If you look at our record, you see we have been pushing for not just dual citizenship that has passed, but we are also pushing now for a diaspora bank to be established in Liberia. We're also pushing for an environment where Liberians can invest, especially Liberians in the diaspora. We're talking about economic free zone for diaspora Liberians. So we are advocating for more than just social justice. We are also advocating now for economic justice. So we came on board with this new outlook and a new push to extend the horizon of ULAA. So our focus is not just on one aspect of our advocacy.
Thank you so very much. And folks, if you are joining us, we are in conversation. This is an exclusive, by the way, with members of ULAA's board. Its recent electoral convention ended in chaos. The executive president, the national executive president, Kamara, has pointed his fingers at them that they disrupted the convention intentionally just because maybe they just don't like it. Well, we will find out today from the board what actually happened. And so I'm going to start with the chairman here, Mr. Chairman. At the time when we had show here, he mentioned your name. He was not sure, though. There was someone holding a chair at the convention hall. He was not sure you were the one. So tell me what happened. Did you actually disrupt the convention and intentionally, sir?
Firstly, most times people look at where they fall. They don't look from where they stomp their foot. Mm-hmm. So let us go back to the genesis of the situation.
Okay.
And I will give you some constitutional background when it comes to the union. Now, one of the things that if you read chapter 8, article 9, it says the board shall suspend the charter of member organizations for violation of one of these conditions and shall revoke the charter of member organizations for violation of all these conditions. Lack of representation on the board and the leadership council for 1 year. 2, inactive participation on the board, the leadership council, and the activities of the union for 1 year. 3, non-payment of membership dues to the union for 1 year, or 4, gross violation of the provisions of this constitution. So I want you to bear in mind, it's the board of directors that has the authority to suspend or revoke a chapter. Having established that, now we'll go on to, if you read chapter 23, article 1, among other things, it says no organ of the union shall stop, suspend, or postpone or cancel the national elections of the union. No organ. It means that the board does not have that authority. It means that the administration does not have the authority. Neither does the leadership council have that authority to do so. Now, there's another interesting thing. Chapter 8, article 9 says that the chapter associations shall determine their delegates' makeup when it comes to the convention. Now, after establishing that, there have been series of communications between the chapters. There were 3 chapters: Iowa, Georgia, and Ohio, that the president decided not to be seated. It means that if you not allow a chapter to be seated, it means that chapter you are suspended. Now, I'll go back to chapter 8, article 9. It says only the board of the directors of ULAA has that authority. The president can make recommendation to the board, and the board can take action to suspend a chapter or revoke its membership, and not the president unilaterally doing so. Now, so you see the clear violation. So there were complaints.
Are you suggesting that the national executive president went and acted in that manner against the chapter?
Yes. He took on the position of the board of directors not to sit 3 chapters. And there's been a long communication between the president. I will let the Secretary General to elaborate on some of the communication. When these things started happening from the initial stage, and we saw what was going on, we invited the president to 2 meetings, hoping to avoid the situation that we had on the 16th of September. The president refused to attend the 2 meetings with the board of directors.
Did he not send a representative?
No.
Okay.
I want the Secretary General to read the 2 communications and he responds to the board of directors.
All right. Thank you very much, Brother Chairman. I just want to address my fellow Liberians of what happened what happened in Philadelphia on the 16th of September. The disruption of the convention began long before we arrived in Philadelphia. And I'm going to lay the premise for people to understand it very well. The electoral procedure in ULAA is set up in the following manner. The president nominates election commission and the board confirms the commission. The board then sets up electoral paneling committee, electoral monitoring committee, which is called electoral panel from the board. Nobody interferes with the election process. The election commission hears every case. When they fail, they take appeal to the panel. When the panel fails, the panel comes to the board. While we were approaching the election, we got information in writing that the president began sanctioning chapters that if they don't meet this criteria, they will not sit. So on the 5th of September, we sent the president this letter that reads, and I'm going to just paraphrase it. This communication is being written by the director of the chairman of the board of directors. It's addressed to the president. I present to you compliments of the leadership of the National Board of Directors. And we invited the president to meet and we pointed out, while we were calling him, to resolve matters surrounding the successful holding of presidential and general election within the union. Then we told him again, we implore you to remember your sworn oath to keep the union steady and viable. Mr. President, the board, now at this point, he has refused the first meeting. The board is rescheduling this meeting with you for Wednesday, September 6th. Again, the president did not appear.
May I ask, you, Alfred, and you now saying you sent him communication inviting him.
Yeah.
Did he receive and acknowledge any communication with respect to those meetings?
Yes, the first one we sent, he replied, which I'm going to supply to your station after the show.
Okay.
He said he's attending to administrative matters. He cannot come. So we were baffled. Which administrative matter is more important than the election issue that we are going towards? So then that was when we rescheduled the meeting.
Per your constitution or rules, is he forced to come to any meeting, or is it mandatory that he shows up to any meeting that you invite him to?
Well, per the constitution, the board is charged with the authority to adjudicate any matter arising out of the conduct of the election. So we stated why we were calling him, and we assumed that he would have taken it as a priority. This is where electoral matters.
Okay, so now that happened, and there was this disruption at the convention hall, and the decision now became that there will be no election, correct?
What, I don't know why you use the word decision, Sieh.
Let me come in. Let me come in a little bit. Like I said originally, you read chapter 23, article 1. It says, no organ of the union shall stop, impede, suspend, postpone, or cancel the national elections of the union. The president announced after 5 p.m., or it was around 5:30, that the elections were canceled. It was not the board of directors, not the leadership council. It was the president in clear violation of the Constitution. He canceled the elections. When he canceled the elections, he entered the General Assembly without a resolution to extend, whether to extend his tenure or put in place a mechanism going forward. There was no resolution. He entered the General Assembly. Having done that, we realized there was a vacuum that was created. Under normal circumstances,
And
when
Mr. before you continue on, who is the appropriate authority or the presiding officer whenever there is a convention?
the president is the presiding officer, but the Constitution says only, at that time it's only the General Assembly that can make that decision.
And the decision was not of the General Assembly, and that he made an announcement.
Yes, he solely make that announcement.
But you understand
the elections.
there was crisis at the time. It got chaotic at the time, correct?
Well, almost, let me just help you.
Yeah.
Mr. Sieh, we believe the president orchestrated this to happen the way it went. If you follow our communication on the 14th of September, which we sent to him, we cited the potential his action could bring on the convention. And
what would be his motive for orchestrating this thing, as you are putting it?
This should be in the president's quote to answer this question, because he was the one who took upon himself and started to cancel chapters, which he does not have the authority to do.
So you have chaos on your hands at a convention. Nothing could happen at a time. Did you see the president, Kamara, making efforts to call members or delegates to order so that the General Assembly could make a decision at that time? But my understanding is it was chaotic. Some people were even leaving. Is that correct?
Let me describe. Let me describe.
Okay, let me come in 1 minute, please, Mr. Barclay. How could you call a General Assembly into order when at the same time you buy other members of the General Assembly from participating? This is exactly what he was doing. He was trying to call General Assembly into order.
Who is at fault here? Because there was a breakdown of order here at the convention. And the sense I'm getting here is that you could not have any order at the time to have a decision as a General Assembly. Is that correct?
Like I said from the onset, the atmosphere was already created before going to the General Assembly. Knowing that if you buy these 3 chapters, there will be no way to carry on a convention, excluding chapters that have met all the requirements to be in good standing by virtue of the Constitution. And the president, we tried, I will tell you this, even a member of the eminent council tried to get us together to see how we could come to an agreement. The president still refused to see the 3 chapters. So was he not the one causing the confusion? If he really wanted a General Assembly, he would have seated all the chapters and then we'll go from there.
So what actually was the issue with these chapters? Is it about delegates? What it actually was?
They had internal conflicts. Now, if they had internal conflicts, it should be resolved internally. Now, it being anything that is election related, it goes to the Elections Commission. If the Elections Commission cannot resolve it, an appeal is made to the Board of Directors. At that point, we serve as the judiciary arm of the union to resolve it. So the president took upon himself not allowing the Elections Commission to do its work, neither the board to do its duties.
How did he prevent the Election Commission from doing the work?
Because he never took the matter to the Elections Commission. People appealed to him. According to him, appeal was made to him.
My understanding is that the Election Commission was already constitution with your full knowledge and it was doing its work. How could he have intervened or interfered with their work?
Chairman, let me just
go ahead.
Help you a little bit. Let me end the description of what happened in the hall, because the host asked a strategic question. Was there a way forward? I'm not sure there was a way forward.
Okay.
And if way forward could have been, the president would have allowed those chapters that he has problem with to have presented their case. Or he would have presented the case and they would have been heard. And
to the General Assembly.
But what he did was he has a group of people sitting down that was a second motion, passed the motion, expel them. He put those chapters aside and picked the ones that he handpicked to decide on a vote dictated by him to expel the one that he expelled. That's what brought it up round.
And did that actually happen at the convention hall? Was it a gathering of the General Assembly when that happened?
I mean, we were all sitting.
Okay.
And the chairman, the president, introduced a motion that will be passed by those that he picked. And we were saying, Mr. President, the best thing is put the case on the floor, let them have the time to be heard.
But you are saying two things, like he put it on the floor, but then
no, he didn't. He didn't. He was entertaining motion to expel them.
So what is wrong with? So the issue has to be placed on the floor. But he chose to entertain a motion for expulsion. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So what was the rationale with that?
Well, it was wrong because if I took you to court, I will give you the opportunity to be heard. Then I ask the jury to decide, and you'll be when the president is set free. But this was not the case with the president, who himself was a candidate and was the judge. He had people stationed, and he would have just entertain a motion, and said the motion passed, expel the people. So each time he introduced that motion, that's when the other group was disrupting for the motion not to go through.
So the motion never went through.
It didn't go through.
It did go through, and those
no,
people.
it did not. It did not go through. That's why.
Okay. So my curiosity here also is when it comes to the accreditation of delegates, does the role of the board share any role in that at all? Do you have any role to play as a board?
Well, let me give that to the chairman first.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Any role the board has to play with accrediting delegates from member chapters?
The board, before the General Assembly, the administration normally works with the board of directors to ensure that all the chapters meet the requirements to be in good standing. Now, once it is declared that all the chapters are in good standing at the convention, they are seated. The president sitting the delegate does not disqualify any delegation. You understand that? The only time a delegation can be suspended, it is done before the General Assembly. And that's where the board of directors come in. We have the authority to suspend or revoke a chapter from being seated at the General Assembly. So the president does not discredit a chapter at the General Assembly. The formality of sitting delegates is just a procedure. It's not an authority where the president can stop one chapter from being seated and another allowed to be seated. It's just a formality.
All right.
The things takes place before on the General Assembly.
All right, thank you. Let me come to Mr. Dawo Kamara here. Mr. First Vice Chairman, is it true that you, the board, assume responsibility or the leadership of the of ULAA?
Oh yes, yes, sure.
So tell me, on what basis can you take on the executive leadership of the union? What gives you that power to do so?
Oh, when there's a vacuum and there's no leadership, in the absence of no leadership, the National Board of Directors took over the union until a new leadership is appointed.
So any constitutional basis for that? Any clause that states that you have the right to do so?
Yes, I think the secretary.
Let me just come into that, Harmos here. There is no precedent in what happened in Philadelphia. It has never happened in the union.
Okay.
But I'm going to direct you to chapter 23, and we are going to go down a little bit further about notification of election. Now, the conditions that are described in the Constitution as notification did not exist in Philadelphia.
Okay.
But what we came to conclude, since it's not spelled out in the Constitution, the board went to the mind of the framers of the Constitution. drafters, they were trying to avoid a vacuum when the election is not held. And in a way and manner in which the president canceled the election, which is a violation of another article of the Constitution, created a vacuum which would have favored him. But it states here that if the sitting president, now for nullification, is a candidate and the election is nullified, the board shall assume responsibility and appoint an interim government. So we relied on that. That was the closest constitutional provision, because we could not allow the board, the election, or the union to run without a leader. Mr. Kamara time ended, and he abruptly canceled the election.
So, are you sure his time ended immediately after the disruption of the electoral convention?
His time ended midnight that night. Yeah.
11:59 p.m.
Okay, so you are members of the board. You are on a 2-year term as well, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about your term. When does it end?
Our term ends this period we are in.
What's your definition of period?
Fine. When we were heading towards the election in Philadelphia, the board had preparation and candidates were being prepared. But then someone discovered in the board's own rules, and which I'm going to quote here for you if you give me the time, please.
Please, I want you to do that, because my understanding is that the executive leadership and you had the same, length of time for your tenure, and you were saying their has ended, yours continues. That's what I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
In chapter 4, board rule number 9. 9.1 reads as follows. During the third quarter of a non-national administration election year of the union, or at the National General Assembly of the year, the board shall convene in a special session for the sole purpose of electing its officers. Board elections shall be by a secret ballot and shall be conducted by union members of officials agreed upon by the board. The board election shall be held either the year preceding the union general election or the year thereafter. This shall enhance continuity. So when this was brought to the board, the leadership of the board did not muscle it in. They put it before the board. Now remember this. The board has the prerogative to make its own rules. So the board put it into deliberations. The chairman allows to deliberate on it. It was voted upon and a resolution was passed. The vote was taken. The members of the board agreed to rely on their own provision not to hold election the same year that we're holding presidential election at the same time, because there could be chaos on both sides. So the postponement of our election was agreed upon by the members of the board of directors.
Mr. Sieh, are you still an official of your chapter?
Indeed. I'm still the chairman of the board of directors.
For your chapter?
Yes.
Thereby making you eligible to remain on the board?
Yes.
Mr. Sieh, do you believe your term as a board member is over or not yet?
Not yet, until we have a general assembly where there is a replacement in place.
Is that what the Constitution says, or you are telling me something?
Our chapter, yes. At the next convention, we're supposed to have we had a convention on April 15th. Because there was litigation, the chapter decided that the leadership and the board of directors remain intact until that litigation can be resolved. After the resolution of that litigation, the Secretary General, who is the head of the chapter, will call for a general elections. At that point, my replacement will take place.
This is here, but the term has ended, though, isn't it?
The General Assembly is a higher decision-making body. When we convene on April 15th, the General Assembly which is the highest decision-making body, decided that the administration and the board of directors remain intact because of the litigation.
So let's talk about your tenure as chairman of the board of ULAA. Do you believe your term is still intact? It's not over yet?
Well, you just heard the board rule. The board rule states, and when we met on the 13th of this month,
Mm-hmm.
and the board of directors voted, voted to uphold the status quo of the board, meaning using 9.1 of the board rules to go back to status quo. They passed a resolution, and that resolution says the elections will be held in the year where we don't have presidential and general elections. So yes, I'm still chairman of the board of directors.
Okay. Let me come to the first vice chairman here, Mr. Kamara. You now have, in my judgment, that's my evaluation, and I can be wrong, I'm okay with that, that you actually have a constitutional crisis on hands right now. The electoral convention ended in chaos. You didn't have elections, so you don't have elected officials at the national level, right? And I want to know now, what is the way forward? Do you have the interim leadership in place? How long do we go into election?
Thank you. As we said again, the board is working behind the scene. And from the moment the vacuum was created, the board
You can't take over and be working behind the scene. You assume the executive leadership of the union. Don't work behind the scene. What are you doing now?
Well, when I say working behind the scene, we are working to get the interim leadership in place.
How far are you, Mr. Kamara?
We set up a committee that are going through the vetting process. We'll give the committee 7 days to report back to the board executive, in which we'll be taken to the board of directors. So once that is done, we'll be able to come up with the leadership as soon as possible.
Mr. Kamara, how much time do you have to do this?
In less than 2 weeks, we'll get it together.
Mr. Kamara, are you sure in less than 2 weeks? I'm talking about the entire process of constituting an interim body and going to election. That's what I'm asking you, sir.
Yeah. Oh, I think within 2 weeks, we're going to make sure we have the interim government. Once the interim government is in place, we're actually going to give them the authority to conduct the election within 90 days.
Today is the 29th. Yeah. This fracas happened on the 16th of September.
Yeah.
And you are telling me in 2 weeks from now, you should have done this 2 weeks ago. Don't you believe so?
Oh, but we need to consult all the different organs. You know, there is a union. You're not just going to wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, I appoint leadership." No, you have to consult the leadership council. You have to get in communication with the administration. All the key players, you got to bring them on board to let them know there is a crisis and how can we move forward. Based on that consultation, we came to an agreement. Okay, there is the way forward to have an interim government and make sure that the interim government establish an election within 90 days so we can have a new government to take over the union.
Reverend Barclay.
Yes, sir.
Same question. Where are we now with the interim body?
Absolutely. The first vice is top executive. He's now working on the ground. We work on the grounds. The interim body is about less than 4 days away to be announced. I spoke with the chairman of the vetting committee before coming to this meeting, and she has shown me of that. I'm not going to disclose what progress she has made because it has not been discussed at the executive committee level, but I'm sure this body will be putting out the announcement within that time frame. But Mr. Sieh, something very important that we left behind, and it's important that Liberian people know about this. Okay. When the chapter complained from Georgia, the chapter that complained against the leadership, listen to what they say in their letter. They said, due to the urgency of this matter, they're addressing the president of the union. We are therefore requesting that the ULAA Election Commission intervene in this matter immediately. They told the president, this is not your place to intervene. Send it to the Election Commission. Why didn't he do that? Why didn't the letter is here? I'm going to send you everything that I'm reading so it can be part of your records. Even the people that complain knew the right thing.
Yeah, that particular letter we have in our possession.
Thank you very much
for referencing that. So, Mr. Sieh,
Yeah, sir.
are you in consultation with Sieh?
I'm not in consultation with Sieh.
Why not?
As far as I'm concerned, his tenure is over. We are making sure he had probably ended his tenure. Why would there is a man who actually violated the Constitution? So my consultation with him will do what? Why will he be resolving? He had an opportunity to meet with us before the crisis. He had an opportunity, and we try to do all we can to ensure to avoid a crisis. He created a crisis. Consulting him will do what? Prolong the crisis. Let us do the right thing that we need to do. The people that we need to consult is the Leadership Council, and we are working with them to ensure in the next few days we can have an interim leadership in place that will take the affairs so that Sieh and his co-officers can transition to this body. And so we can make sure that we have elections in 90 days after the body is constituted. So, to end this, Mr. Sieh will kick the ball in our court. We are fighting hard now to control the ball so we can make sure the game goes on. He kicked the ball to us.
And Mr. Sieh will be allowed to participate in the elections, right?
But we are not trying to we are not trying to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
Those who apply and became qualified to be candidates will remain the same. We are not trying to remove any candidate. We don't want to create more crises. That's why I said from the beginning we're trying to do all we can to have a safe and soft landing of the union.
All right, folks in cyberspace, this is Focus on Liberia. I'm Ansony Sieh hosting. I have with me Reverend James D. Barclay, Secretary General of the ULAA Board, and also Mr. Kamara, who is the first Vice Chairman, that's ULAA Board, and Mr. Alfred Sieh, Chairman of the Board. We are in conversation with them concerning the recent electoral convention chaos that took place on the 16th of September in Philadelphia. Something that has never happened in the union before has happened this time. Elections got canceled, so we don't have elected officials. This is the crisis they have on their hands. Joshua Kamara has pointed the fingers at them that this disrupted the convention intentionally because maybe they just don't like him. I hope I'm putting it right. So if you're just joining us, please do all a favor by sharing the broadcast. Again, this is Focus on Liberia. I come back to you, Reverend Barclay. How long will Liberians have to wait for this whole thing to be behind us with this election?
Well, to be a little bit liberal, I can assure you that this week we are entering with that end with our Liberian hearing announcement. And once the announcement is made, we are going to work with that team to ensure that the election goes on. But something we have overlooked here is the case of Iowa. You have never asked that. I'm waiting because there is important information about Iowa that Liberian people need to know. I contributed to this chaos, but I'm going to wait until you get to that point. But this coming week, there will be an announcement.
All right, let's go to the Iowa case. What is it about Iowa that you want Liberians to know?
Fine, thank you. Iowa had a leadership crisis, and they informed the president, which is the right thing to do, that we, the board of directors, have taken over Iowa's leadership. So we will not be participating in the coming convention. And it was good. After some time, Iowa had an interim government, and they informed the president. And the president wrote the National Board of Directors, Iowa has an interim government. I urge you to cooperate with the national government so that we can support that national interim administration. And we agreed. From that moment, the board of directors believed that Iowa's interim leadership were calling the shot for Iowa, not the board of directors. When the interim president submitted his list of delegates, when the board of directors retracted their letter that they will be coming now, Mr. President refused again to honor that. He tried to deny them the right to vote. Now watch this. When I conducted the elections in 2021 in Ohio, Iowa's delegate letter was sent and signed by the then president alone. It was never signed by the board of directors and the president. And I have that document I can share with you. This time, the president and the election commission began to go back and forth with it. They want the board of directors chairman to sign, the president to sign. We said, no. Once you introduce to us a president, we are going to deal with that president. This is the cross of the case of Iowa. He denied them unjustly. And we wrote him advising to cease and desist from interfering with electoral matters.
My curiosity here now, Mr. Sieh, if I can come back to you. It seems to me now this whole delegate issue is always the area of contention when it comes to electoral convention in ULAA. So, given the lessons you've learned so far, Mr. Chairman, in your own personal opinion, how can this whole delegate thing be looked into to avoid this kind of conflict always?
Well, I think perhaps in the future, ULAA needs to go back to its constitution and perhaps put in a structure as to how delegates should be decided. Because right now the constitution says the chapter does it by itself. Yeah. What we see over the years when it comes to elections, we see delegate lists are basically manipulated by the chapters. We have no authority to do so. But each chapter perhaps need to come out with its own mechanism that can be presented to ULAA to say, going forward, there is the mechanism by which delegates will be selected in our chapter. And there we all have a common ground. But where there is no clear definition, we say we leave it just with the chapters to select their delegates. And normally, it's the administration that submits lists of delegates to the Elections Commission and not the board of directors. Except if the chapter decides this time, if we're going to submit our list of delegates, it has to be approved by the board. That should be something that we need to talk to the chapters about. Do we need to have the board's involvement in the selection of delegates in the delegate process? These things that we need to talk about in the future. So as for now, this is where we are. And we're seeing the level of crisis.
Yeah, Mr. Sieh, please make adjustment at your end. I'm sure he received a call. That's why he's causing that issue. Let me see if I can bring him back there.
Yeah, I see that there is a situation we are facing. Going forward, chapters will maybe ULAA need to form a delegation that will work with the local chapters and come up with a framework through the Leadership Council as to how delegates should be selected in chapters. I think that's the way forward.
I have this crazy idea, and my friend Dennis was telling me, hey, I don't think it's the best way. I was like, okay, what Liberians across the U.S. can just show up to the convention as we'll have on election day and then vote. Because I don't see how the whole delegate noise will stop even in the future, because candidates that tend to have interest in these elections, they try to reach out to the leadership in the respective chapters and try to talk to them. And this is politics, right? You have to lobby. Yeah. And then sometimes the lobbying now that tends to confusion. Oh, you're voting for this person. Oh, the chapter favors this person. And now the noise. So I'm not sure what would be the best way forward. Mr. Secretary General, do you have some ideas?
Yes, look
at before the secretary.
Go ahead, first vice.
I think I make a proposal to the board. One thing we need to look into to actually reduce the tension within the union when it comes to election is whenever it's an election year and the president is a candidate, who should start an interim government? But being a referee at the same time being a player, it got a confusion. Because if you are president running at the same time and you are a candidate, and then if chapter don't favor you, you want to do everything to silence that chapter because they are not in your corner. So there's one area we're going to look into. Then another area is we don't want to take the power from the chapters. ULAA is a chapter base, it's not an individual base. ULAA is a chapter base, so anyone cannot just show up to the convention. So we have to empower the chapters so they can be independent to select their delegates based on the structure of their constitution that they are presented to the board of directors. And as the chairman said, they will come on the drawing table. Is that require the board of directors signature, or is that require the administration alone? I think this is something we can revisit from what we learned from this crisis.
All right. With that said, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be reading some comments and we will be going to the phone line also for some calls.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
At Focus on Liberia.
All right, we are back with you. We will read some comments here quickly. Let's read some comments. Sam Makolo writes, they have no authority. Trying to talk about the boat here. Also, let's see what Sam Wallow is saying. Sam Wallow writes, Liberia seems to struggle with the quality of leaders at every level, whether big or small. The organizational leadership dynamics are the same. Maybe Sam Wallow is saying ULAA should be the one showing us the example how to do it better, but even ULAA is having some issues here. As etc., right? Why the board refused to have their election? Nobody stopped the board from electing their new leadership. The so-called current leadership of the board has no legitimacy to form any interim government. Mr. Chairman, I want you to address that.
Well, I think if Ansony is from Georgia, if he was following this, we read the board rule number 9.1, so he will understand that. And unfortunately, Ansony have been around for a while, and I don't know why he's turning a blind eye to this. When Honorable Anthony Kessley was chairman of the board of directors, it was when the board rules were drafted. And the wisdom behind not having board elections during presidential and general election was to avoid situations like this. Now, look at this crisis. If we never had a board of directors still in place, the crisis would have been bigger than what it is. And that was perhaps part of the wisdom not to have board elections. The board of directors has, look, let me go back to the Constitution. Article 14 says the board shall establish rules and regulations and elect its officers for the conduct of business. It's only the board that decide when to have elections, when they want to have elections. Before the General Assembly, the board met and passed a resolution. The resolution of the board is law that says, let us return to status quo. Let us not have elections this year, but wait until next year. So where is Ansony Central coming from saying that the board is not legitimate? It's just so surprising, when people selectively interpret the law.
I think, Mr. Chairman, people are not informed when it actually comes to board rules. So there is something I think that the secretary will forward over to Mr. Anthony Sieh, and a lot of people get a resolution. They don't understand that we're not operating in a vacuum. It's something that we already came up together as a members of the board of directors. Not only the board executive, but the entire board have a vote on it, and it will pass with majority.
There is information that we're not putting out there concerning the board. I think that's why most of this argument is coming about. Almost year prior to the postponement of our election, we were in full gear to have elections. The board members of the board were running campaign within our own groups. There was no objection to holding election. And we would have had election, and we had new leadership. Mr. Sieh will still be on the board because we don't have the authority to withdraw him or do whatsoever if he didn't win. Or in fact, Mr. Sieh was not going to be running. So this was a clear understanding. Now people think we're on the board, we can just agree with we don't just agree with one another. We're playing for election, we're playing for new officers to take over. We're set on that. But when it came to reviewing our own rules, we said, no, it's enough, it's enough. We can't just disrespect our rules.
All right. Let me bring in more comments here. There's a comment I read here that said that the current administration has, I think, 30 days. I don't know if that is true. Do you know that to be true? Gentlemen.
Under normal circumstances, the outgoing administration has 30 days to transition to the incoming administration. Okay, but we had a cancellation, which is now people now addressing the fact that the president clearly violated the Constitution. We won't have been in this position discussing this issue if the president had not canceled the elections. He violated the Constitution. He does not have the authority. We don't have the authority as board directors to cancel any elections. He clearly violated the Constitution, and nobody is holding him responsible for this. What we're trying to do is to ensure.
Mr. Sieh, you are making a significant point there. I mean, let me hold you there, sir. You said he actually canceled the election. Did I quote you right?
Yes.
Okay. So how did he do it? Because I go back to the fact that there was interruption at the convention. So how did he do it as an individual? Because you kept saying that.
The president announced that the machine operators were going to leave at 6 p.m. So there wasn't enough time to conduct the elections. Now, administratively, if you are allowed the General Assembly, that will be a different issue. General Assembly, this is where we are. Okay. Can we postpone the elections and not probably announce it because the machine operators are not going to be around until 6 p.m. Therefore, elections are canceled.
But
that's where the board establishes authority.
If I may have,
Mr. Secretary General, I want an clarity on this. Is that what happened on that day?
Yeah, let me just clarify.
Yeah.
Prior to the president making that announcement, the other two organs of the union, the National Leadership Council, had convened a meeting in the corner to find a solution. The board was in the corner finding a solution. The two groups were finding a solution to come and meet the president with a suggestion. He disregarded them. He looked in our direction. We're not in the hidden room, the two groups, and then he looked in our direction and just abruptly called up the election. So that's why he did.
Because from the way you guys are explaining, I was not there, to be honest. And my sense is that this was completely a breakdown of the entire order at the convention, and you leaders didn't know what to do at the time, and so things just ended that way. And so to say that the president canceled the election, and that's what I'm trying to get clarity on, guys.
No, I gave you instance that maybe you forgot that there was a way, there was a pathway. Because prior to this time, the president, the chairman of the board of directors, and the coordinator of the National Leadership Council went to a meeting with the vice president.
Okay.
So we're crafting a solution. And one of the best ways that could have led us forward was to have allowed the accused to be heard. The one you don't want to be in a convention, let people hear them, hear the case. If the president had done this, maybe we would have changed our mind and voted in his favor to kick them out.
So let's talk about due process, Mr. Secretary General. You acted according to your chairman here that the president violated the Constitution, and so that had given you the right to act the way you acted, right? Yeah. Did you give him due process? Because according to your own rules, if you had to remove any of your member, I just read it, you must give that person due process. Was he given a due process?
So if you can remember again, I quoted a part of the Constitution that would lean on the one that has to do the notification of election.
Right.
It is after that we call for due process. Is it when election is notified?
So let me read it. Hold on. Let me read it. It reads, that's Article 4. Is that correct? Election shall only be nullified for gross violation of the Constitution. That is, and they're explaining what gross violation means. A candidate not obtaining the age of 21 years, not an active member of a member organization that is in good standing with the union, or a not Liberian or of Liberian descendant. That's why it says.
So my explanation was, which I was saying, what happened in Philadelphia has no precedence. So we had to rely on Article 6 and 7 of that same chapter you were reading, because the president's action created a void of leadership. So that was the only thing that came closer when there's a void of leadership.
And as I read these articles, I still did not see where the president action, as you are alleging, warrants that, he should be kicked out of office.
Exactly, because that has never happened in the union. Like I said, it's not written word for word in the Constitution. So this is why we in authority must use discretionary decision-making process. And because the president's term is over, he ended election, there is no election, and he's a candidate. We cannot allow him to benefit for something that he created chaos for and resume leadership over his competitor. And now we are not eliminating him from taking part in the vote. If you think he has the votes, he can come and take part in the votes.
All right. Let's go to the phone line, gentlemen, and see if we have a caller here. Caller, your name and where you're joining us from. Phone number ending in 6619.
This is James Victor Nangwe. I'm calling from Atlantic City.
Go ahead.
So I just have a comment. I believe we are where we are because of this administration's adversarial attitude towards the board. Issues will always arise, but cooler heads must prevail. There were several attempts that were made to resolve the matters that still made it the convention in Philadelphia. Some of that was told to you on this space today. The president and his team outrightly refused to cooperate with the board. I don't care what the situation, what the matter is you have with the board, but the board has a constitutional role to play. You must allow the board to play its role, and that is to adjudicate matters where the president himself is a party. So several attempts were made, they refused. If you check your feed now, you will find all the trolls in your feed are mostly the president's people. The vice president is in there, making all the disparaging remarks against the board. How do we make progress in this way? So we have reached out, the Keita team has reached out to the Kamara team. We need to find a way so that we can break this impasse, because nobody is served by all of this antagonism. So I know the president is watching, and I know he's hearing me. He needs to talk to his people. They need to calm down. They need to calm down so that we all can sit together with the board and figure this out. But the kind of atmosphere they are creating is going to make it impossible for us to move ahead. If you check your feed now, my witness is there in your feed. All of these people, Dr. Wirjala, Dr. Sumo Hobart, all of these people are sitting here and also disparaging the board. You may disagree with the board, but there is a way and manner in which this can be resolved. I think all of this antagonism is not serving any purpose. It's not helping anybody. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Victor Namel. Let me read the comment here, and that is from Lloyd Harris. There was no time for the election. The election was supposed to occur from 9 a.m., according to this person, to 5 p.m. The announcement was made at 4:35 p.m. due to insufficient time. And Stephen Logan here writes, we are, I don't know the same convention because Show did bring it to the General Assembly and you all kept rushing the table and would not even let the ballot machine to rev and speak. I don't know what the person says. It's not clear there. But the one that is clear here is that the person is saying there was no sufficient time. Was that the case?
We were aware that time was running out, and some of the president's financial team were insinuating that the people that run the machine work for money and they work for us, and they would have asked for overtime, and we would have allowed. Barclay made that statement. We would have allowed payment to be made to continue overtime during the elections.
Let me come in, Mr. Sieh.
Yes, please.
Whenever you are in the room, when it comes to matter like this, you need to get ready for leadership. Even if you are angry, if things are not going your way, and you are presiding over the convention, you need to actually be a leader. If the president determines that time is not sufficient, why not you talk to the board? Why not you talk to the leadership council? Time is not in our favor. Why can we say to the General Assembly, whether we have to postpone the election? These are things the president, who the presider, is supposed to do. But because he was not happy and things were not going the way he wanted, he just abruptly said the election is canceled, and that will lead us to where we are today.
But Mr. Kamara, it now appears as though you were praying for this opportunity, that there will be such situation where it will not be possible to hold the election. And it's like you have pounced on it now and say, well, we're going to act quickly since election was not possible. We assume the executive leadership, maybe we don't like this guy anyway. Because because I continue to still believe that there was so much confusion and interruption and chaos, and so everybody left because there was no time. So elections were not held.
No.
And so you said, well, this is an opportunity for us to strike. Was that not the case?
No. Mr. Kamara is a friend of mine. There's nothing I have against Mr. Kamara why we should honor him or to say we don't like him. Mm-hmm. But what I'm trying to say here, Mr. Sieh, is whenever you are a leader, you still have to have your leadership hat on your head, no matter whether things are not going your way. So if the time was not in your favor, and still you are presiding over this convention, it is still you have to reach out to your company. We are a team. Reach out to your look. With everything that's going up and down, can we be able to postpone this election? Because the time is not there. Because if you have the constitution saying you cannot cancel election, you have to coordinate with the people and say, look, we are the General Assembly. I can't do you to election, so can we postpone this election? I think everybody would have come together to the General Assembly and agree upon that to say, okay, not postpone the election because times are not in our favor. That's what I'm trying to say. But it did not happen. He was angry and he woke up and then make that decision.
Thank you. Let's go back to the phone line. We have Barclay there. Bill, please let us hear you. Bill seems not to be ready. We'll get back to him. Phone number ending in 5407. What is your name and where you joining us from?
Hello?
Yes, hello. Please do not listen to the monitor. Yeah. Cancel your monitor. Don't listen to the broadcast anymore. Cancel it. Just listen to your phone, please.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead, please.
Yes, my name is Dr. Somoha Babasa, former president of the Librarian Association of Georgia and also the Southern Regional Vice President and outgoing Southern Regional Vice President of ULAA.
Okay.
I was at the convention and I'm listening keenly to the board, and I was here listening to Sieh Kamara, the current president, the other day doing the interview. I was very appalled by the board behavior that day. And no offense, I got two brothers on the board, Remy Barclay and on the Sieh. But during that convention, I was very shocked. The board is there to be neutral and solve problems when chapters are having issues. But I think our board, for all our librarian organizations, have declared themselves little gods to our community. The problem started from here. It was not that they were ignorant to Georgia problem. I'm speaking, and I continue to say I'm speaking on Georgia problem. I'm not speaking on anybody else's problem. My children are part of the organization. My parents were part of the organization before they left from here. And everybody in the community know them. Even my son voted at the last election in Ohio. During the time we sent in the list, my two kids were on, and they were qualified. They met the criteria. They were taking off that list. Nobody spoke to me, even though I inquired. The board received communication. The board from here in Georgia, they never responded. We went farther than that, and that's why I talked to them during the election. I said, so y'all want to tell me ULAA is only there, that the chapters pay their money, and you take the money when the chapter leaders are having problems with their members, especially for the dedicated list, because this happens every year. Y'all don't say anything. The board canceled the election. If you ask me, they did. I saw them walking back and forth. When the president tried to put a motion on the floor, they refused. They said if Georgia chapter, Iowa, and Ohio were not seated, they were not going to allow the elections to take place. If you think I'm joking online, play the video. A lot of people have the videos all over their Facebook pages, and you will see how the board demonstrated. They demonstrated worse than the members that were there. You telling me that you have already set up a committee. You have not spoken to the president, but you set up a committee to take over in a couple of days. Don't you think that chaos you want to start within the union? Don't you think this matter should be resolved before you get to announce any interim government? If there's chaos, is that how the board will go about handling this situation? Is that a responsible and accountable board that we have for ULAA, that they cannot resolve matters? They just look for ways to prolong and cause more confusion? I rest my case, Mr. Sieh. Let the Nigerian people look into this matter and tell us, let all of them decide. Because they think that the board telling me tonight, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not buying it moving forward. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And Stephanie Logan, you're right. The president did try to speak to the General Assembly several times, and every time he spoke, you all rushed to the table and caused chaos and yelling. Let me bring in Bill now. I hope he's ready this time. Bill Barclay, are you there now?
I sure am, Mr. Sieh. How are you today?
I'm fine. Please go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for hosting this, this public forum. I'm a big fan of your program, and I like that you present things in a quite fair and balanced manner. So I wish you luck in that. Also, want to thank the members of the board of directors for taking time to speak to people openly about the challenges that are being faced appreciate you all and the hard work that you do. I sit back and listen sometimes, and it's kind of interesting how so many detractors out there try to create unwarranted chaos to pursue their agenda. My chapter, in particular, and I know I've spoken to you about this on another occasion, was one of those chapters that was unconstitutionally targeted by Mr. Kamara. And I told him that to his face. My chapter filed 3 letters of grievance and protest against Kamara before the convention even started for election interference. In a balanced system, we should always create an avenue for dissent. And that is fair, even in America. Let's take the Supreme Court, for instance. When they make a decision, majority rules, the people who are in the minority can always write dissent, saying, hey, I know we all agree to this, but, we had a different view. We're just putting that on record. That's fair. But when people try to dissent and try to override the entire system, that's not proper. In Georgia, and I'll find some time to come on your program and speak directly to people, has one of the most robust processes for delegate selection in the entire union. Yeah. If someone has an issue in my chapter, there's so many processes to follow. And those who follow the process will have their issues addressed. So when people come up with this claim, as Mr. Kamara did, claiming that there's chaos because 1 or 2 people had a problem with the process, that's not correct. And it was very immoral for him to say that and to attempt to disenfranchise an entire chapter based on some of his supporters creating fake claims of distress in our chapter. So I'll end there, sir, Mr. Sieh. Thank you so much for your time. I just wanted to put that word in. Thank you to the board of directors for doing the right job. Georgia is behind you, and we'll make sure that there's order in this union. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll read the final comment here, gentlemen, from Isaac T. Setrod again. Nobody canceled this election. Nobody canceled this election board of directors. The reality on the ground was that the time ran out, and coupled with the chaos, the president has the right to close the General Assembly. The president has no right over the election. The election commissioners have the right to do so. Well, gentlemen, time is fast spent. The general sentiment I'm getting from the crowd, Cetro and other people, there was chaos, and the president did not cancel the election, as you are alleging. And so for you to have acted and assumed executive leadership, and I believe these individuals are also saying you were taking power onto yourself and that you were not acting in a very legitimate way. But so we have to find solution, gentlemen. And Chairman Sieh, what is the way forward? I know you said interim body will be put into place soon, and then we'll go to election. Is that all you have for a resolution to put the fire off?
Thank you for allowing me to make my last comment.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot have your cake and eat it too.
Mm-hmm.
The president, and I will state it clearly, announced that the elections were canceled. He did not stop there. He abruptly ended the General Assembly without a resolution from the General Assembly to extend the program. I will tell you this. ULAA, I have been in ULAA for about 20 years now. We have had elections that even went up to the next morning. We would have found a way. The board of directors and the leadership council were meeting when the president made his announcement. If the president wanted to really find a solution, he would have contacted the board of directors and the leadership council to find a way forward from that moment. But he dropped the ball. And now we are claiming the elections were interrupted. We are making noise as to where the president fell. We are not talking about where he stormed his fort. He stormed his fort long before he fell. And this happened long before the General Assembly. And we try to do everything possible to reason with the president, to have a dialogue, to have a common mind. Going to the General Assembly, he refused. We're not going to sit here and allow dictatorship. How can we declare dictatorship in Liberia when we allow dictators to be grown from here? And people think there is a game to play. Nobody wants to stay in power for long.
But the chairman has accused you of being dictatorial as well for taking over the executive leadership unconstitutionally, he said.
Well, he canceled the elections. After he canceled the elections, after I read chapter 23, article 1, he canceled the elections. He violated the Constitution. And there should be no consequences. Is that what you say when you create a vacuum? We should sit and allow the vacuum to continue? We cannot do that. No reasonable person should allow such to happen. We cannot allow the union to go on with a vacuum. We are the legislative arm of the organization. We had to do something. Therefore, we have to step in. And like we said, there is unprecedented in the history of ULAA for elections to be canceled and General Assembly ended without a resolution. So we had to do what we needed to do to save the union. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sieh. And Mr. Joshua Kamara has just called in. We will allow him to speak. Mr. Kamara, we give you 3 minutes to speak.
Mr. Sieh, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sieh, and thanks for the, allowing me this public space. Under a normal condition, I wouldn't even go back and forth. But there are just some clear statements I want to make here. One is that even if there were another candidate elected on the 16th, due to the smooth transfer of power, I will still be president of the union until the next 30 days. So that's point number one. And the framers of the Constitution, unfortunately, some of your guests maybe were not debaters of this current Constitution, but I was in Decatur, Georgia. The framers of the Constitution did not want to see an interruption because ULAA has been through that history in the past. Secondly, under the ULAA Constitution, the board of directors cannot take law unto itself to admit chapter for even a general assembly or to suspend and revoke any chapter. So there are two separate issues here. One is that coming to an assembly, you are coming as a delegate, and the ULAA president presides, as reflected in chapter 8, article 1. It's just the same, for example, there will be elections next year in the United States, so Joe Biden cannot be president of the Republic of the United States. Sorry. The other thing, too, also that is very important to note is that I did not interfere in any chapter I said. When chapters are marginalized under the Constitution, chapter 11, article 1, 2, 3, and 4, the national president is the one who conducts the day-to-day activities of the union. So when you marginalize your members, when you want to come to the national body and elect people and appear as if you are constitutionally right, the case in point
with Georgia and Pulawa were brought to the National Assembly. And a motion was made for the motion. I mean, a motion was made to be voted up and down. What is important to note is that the three individuals that you have there, particularly the former chairman of the board, Mr. Alfred, Sieh, and James Barclay. In fact, Jim Barclay in person physically attacked me to take the microphone from me. Alfred Sieh led the revolt. There was nothing absolutely that could be discussed at that convention. I was there 8:52 early that morning on the 16th. I even spoke to Mr. Sieh before the convention started. They brought the January 16th style to ULAA convention. It's very
Mr. Kamara.
that this happened.
Mr. Kamara. Show.
One of my wife, they were happening in the first place.
Show.
They need to be punished for their action. They don't have no constitutional right to even be a president. Look, their action, this is what they're doing.
Show.
They are signing additional time to themselves, just like other African leaders are doing. They were elected with me in 2021, and since the 16th of September, their term has expired. I would transfer to a legitimate entrant, a legitimate authority that will be elected into the union. Finally, Mr. Sieh, I'm happy that they pointed to this. What is happening in the union is unprecedented. We haven't had it before. They are misquoting the Constitution. This is not a nullification. Okay? This is where an election was disrupted by nobody else but three people who are important members of the union, and there's no reason on planet Earth that would have made sense to these three people. But now they left, disrupted the convention, but go and sit on the National Board of Directors and thinking that you can be a plaintiff, you can be a disruptor, but at the same time, you can punish the national president. They got to be in your dreams.
Mr. Kamara.
Turn over. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Kamara, just short question. Did you actually cancel the election? That is what Mr. Sieh is alleging here.
I did not cancel the election. Like I said, I was there 8:52 a.m. on the 16th. I spent the entire day trying to resolve the three chapter issues. At some point, they were even brought into the hall that, look, let the accusers confront those who they accuse. At some point, something else was suggested, and a meeting was held with former Chairman Alfred, James Barclay, and other people. Then it was concluded that the three chapters come in, let them sit on one side, and then the rest of the chapter would determine their fate. That was what we were trying to do when the motion was put on the floor. And then Mr. Sieh, James Barclay, who physically attacked me, they were doing that entire day. No sense on the planet Earth to prevail. Until I even invited the honest ballot people. The honest ballot people came in and said they would not conduct election any further. They even made some proposals about mail-in ballots. You see people, Mr. Sieh and his group, who those people? The leader was even shaking. So when they left, and they said continue, so with whatever they're doing, it was just unbelievable.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
the convention ended without me canceling an elections, but we had to protect lives and property. These three people need to be punished for their action. They should not even come to anything close to power.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Joshua Kamara, for calling in. We'll go back to the phone line. We have Mr. Mohammed Keita. Mr. Keita, we will give you 2 minutes, sir, please. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, the moderator. We appreciate you. You know, it's so disheartening and disappointing for our former president to come out and change the entire narrative and add a story to it. This is very bad. It's a bad precedent for us. The president, he was over to eat something. That's not true. He was nowhere around. First, they said, Thursday meet and greet, 0. Only a few people showed there. They said Friday we'll do everything. We were there from in the morning up to in the evening. Nothing. The only thing there was a debate. The next day in the morning, this president, their former president, and co-host disrupted the whole thing. They delayed everything in our war there. You know, even if you found out that people got more people, a lot of people there that
Mr. Keita, why are you calling him former president?
I'm sorry?
On what basis are you calling him former president?
Because the board had already taken a constitutional step to set him aside because he canceled the election. And that election, he said he didn't cancel it.
Does the board have power to fire an elected president of the union?
Fire him.
But you assume executive leadership when he
Yeah, Mr. Sieh, because a time ended.
After the day,
We did not fire him.
I know what I'm saying. By your constitution, he has 30 days for the peaceful transfer of power.
Yes.
And you assume executive leadership, so by default, you kick him out.
No,
Mr. Sieh, no.
Mr. Kamara, wait, let me come in a little bit.
No, let give Mr. Keita the chance to speak, please. Mr. Keita,
Okay.
go ahead.
You know, first of all, there's no part of in our constitution the president have the right to cancel. The president, the only people that are supposed to postpone the election or cancel it if there's emergency.
You just heard him. He said he did not do so. He said he did not do so.
Not the chapter, not the president. First of all, the president did not even call for the assembly. He did not. He did not call for the assembly. The only thing he did is he just said right there, take a vote. He asked people to submit, information, all those stuff. Nothing. 0. You understand? This man unilaterally canceled the election, which is illegal. You cannot cancel the election. You cancel the election, there's a vacuum. The board have the right to come in to make sure that there's order, law and order. And that's what you do over there. And you call yourself president moving around, you say he's still a president. I know it's the same thing I knew from the beginning that they're going to bring out the same thing here. If the president found that he will be defeated and kicked out of the leadership because of the bad leadership, who's take on the LeBron people? After they both spend that money, you know how many people flew to come to Philadelphia? All the women left their children just to come there to make sure there's a change of order. But when he saw it, he was panicked. And I walked to him. I pleaded with him. I said, please, and it's recorded. I asked him, I said, what is it can make for us to have this election? He said the 3 chapter is the president. Is a problem. I said the 3 chapter, I will talk to the board. Please, I will talk to the 3 chapter. Let them step aside. But for the LeBron board's sake, have the election. He accepted it. And I went back to tell my colleague, as soon as I came back, he changed the whole thing. That thing is just a war. When you go to Ghana, you come back, they say, well, the war is not a Bible. That's not fair.
Thank
How
you.
in the world you will be in this country, you criticize the African leader, when you find USA, you are corrupt. It's not fair.
Mr. Keita, thank you.
The board needs to step in. If the board step in, another leader come in, it's going to be the same thing.
We'll leave it there, Mr. Keita. Thank you. We'll leave it there. Mr. Keita actually was the opposing candidate to Joshua Kamara, who spoke earlier. I will take my last caller here for the day. Last name is
Mr. Sieh, before you do that,
let me take my caller.
You still have time to.
Yeah, 8189. That's the number you have a meeting. Please go ahead.
Yes, my name is Lai Touré from the state of Georgia. Thank you, Mr. Sieh. What I want to say here is that, I do have the cameraman that was there, both Mr. Kamara and MSG, who was talking, and those that was at the convention. I think if that cameraman recorded from the start to the end. He got there when Mr. Kamara called the police prior to the delegation coming to the delegate coming to the hall he contacted police. You know,
who is the Mr. Kamara? Call the full name because we have Dow Kamara, we have Sieh Kamara. Please.
Sieh Kamara.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Therefore, I have the video from the start of the convention to the end. You know, even at the time, but what I want to say here is this.
Don't you think he called the police because there was chaos? Hold on. Don't you think he called police because there was chaos, disruption?
That not before that, the convention. When I saw the video at that time, the convention was not even started yet. No, but let me go back to why the state of Georgia is the paramount of my state right now. So what happened is this. We complete Mr. Kamara, Sieh Kamara had no business to do. We had a complete organic law here, or the constitution or bylaw of Lama that we all go by. So you have to attend 2 meetings and pay your full due. And that is why with everybody that was on the list here before you got on the list. So that's why those people that complain that there was not, they boycotted the meeting, they left, they created their own organization, but because of they want to support somebody at the ULAA, they came in July and to attend July and August meeting. That made them qualify. Okay?
Mr. Toure, thank you.
So that's why they were put on the list. For them to go and target it, because I feel that this whole thing was a matter of tribalism. They went ahead and look at the entire Mandingo list. You look at Mr. Sieh, you have that when you have the conversation with Mr. Kamara, he said that the list that 80% of the people are Mandingo, from which Mr. Sieh Kamara is transitioned to that. So they want to target those people. You know, I see that they attended the meeting and nobody was this press chat. So now,
Mr. Toure will leave it there because of time. Thank you. Mr. Toure will leave it there because of time. Gentlemen, I'm back with you. I will get a mini closing from each of you because of time. We should have another program coming here soon. Mr. Alfred, I will give you, you will be the last to speak, Mr. Chairman. Let's start with the Secretary General, Reverend James D. Barclay. Your closing, please.
Thank you, Mr. Sieh. I am not surprised of what Mr. Kamara went into. Later on, when I reviewed situations, then I got to learn that Mr. Kamara was not prepared for the elections that he was going to. I didn't know earlier. But his behavior really was not a display of sound leadership at the convention. We tried to help Mr. Kamara to ensure that elections were held. We brought him into closed-door meetings to get recommendation, but Mr. Kamara is one of those who believe in the Godfather system in the election. So apparently he didn't campaign. He didn't win the minds and souls of the people that were electing. He was left alone empty, panicking. Now he's coming about accusing people.
You are the member of the board. You should be neutral, and you're speaking in this way?
Yeah, from what I saw. That's what I said. I said I didn't know before. But when I saw this, and I have the right to speak as a human being when I'm being personally attacked.
Okay.
I have the right to do that.
I agree you do.
Fine, but I didn't know first when I went into the convention, I didn't know that was his position. But after reviewing all these tips, then I realized that Mr. Kamara came in the election handicapped. But what I want to assure people in Liberia is that the boy is trying to do the right thing. And what we are doing, it will serve as a deterrent to any incumbent president that will be involved in elections not to meddle in it. There should be a fair player in the election. This is what the boy is trying to do, and we are going to move ahead because we have the mandate of majority of the chapters in the union to do exactly what we are doing. Thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you for coming, Reverend James Barclay. We appreciate your time here and your explanation. Mr. Kamara, your closing, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sieh. Again, to all our Liberian people that are watching tonight, we have come a long way with this union. It is time for us to come together to forge ahead. Sometimes there will be crisis, but at the end of the crisis, there will always be the solution. We, as members of the board of directors, we want to promise this august body, this union, that we're going to do everything possible to keep the peace and the unity within this union. We want you to trust us and rest assured We're not going to be here to see the pieces of this union, and we'll not allow this union to go back in a dark days. The hope of Liberia is on us. We have to get our broken pieces together for us to be able to provide good governance for our own people. I know we came from Philadelphia, people are angry, or people have sides to take, but there is time that we need to know that the union is bigger than every one of us. The National Board of Directors, in 4 or 7 days from now on, will be announcing an interim leadership. We plead to all chapter leaders to please cooperate with this leadership to make sure that the vacuum of this union will not be created. Again, we want to say thank you to who all is involved, to the opposite sides, to the national administration, and even to the board of directors for undertaking this task. We look forward to have a better union. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kamara, for coming. Mr. Sieh?
Thank you so much. I want to take this time to promise the Liberian people that ULAA is in good hands. It's in the hands of the board of directors, and the board of directors will do all it can to ensure that the integrity of the union is protected. We don't want anybody or any group of people to feel that they are godfathers around here in this union. It's this godfathership that is creating all the chaos around ULAA today. We will make sure we will work with all the chapters through its leadership council to ensure that by next week we'll have an interim leadership. We also want to encourage Mr. Sieh Kamara to transition to this new leadership. We are not taking his 30 days away from him. He can enjoy his 30 days transitioning to the new interim leadership. But the board of directors will continue to work for the Liberian people and in the interest of the chapters. ULAA will be strong again. ULAA is not godfather property. ULAA is for all of us who are members of ULAA, including all the chapters. I want to thank you, and I want to thank especially our chapter leaders for the words of encouragement they continue to give us, assuring us that we have their support. Thank you so much, and good night.
Thank you, Mr. Sieh, and folks in cyberspace. This is how we will come to the end of this edition of our program here at Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. And the song that closes the broadcast says, "We are all Liberians." Thank you for watching, and bye-bye.
We are Liberians.